In this lesson of 4.2, we will be talking about the area of a sector. Essentially, what the area of a sector is looking for, it is looking specifically for the area of a slice of the circle. In this section, you're going to make sure that you have a regular calculator available. Using just your regular blue calculators will work just fine, and I'll be demonstrating the calculations using this app. Before we get started, we need a few formulas. The basic formula to find the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. If you need to make a note, you might make sure that you write r being the radius of the circle. To find the area of a sector, that's this little triangular section, you need a slightly different formula. You're going to be using the angle of that section divided by 360 degrees times pi times the radius squared. Let's do a little practice here where we are just finding the area of a basic circle, just to get used to doing the area. So we know that the formula is pi times the radius squared, and in the example that we are seeing here next to us, the radius is 6. If we fill in the formula, we can then go directly over to our calculator, and we can type in pi, which is on the left-hand side of your calculator, times 6 squared. And when we hit enter, we will get 113.1. What I like to do is just round out to one decimal place, and that way you can be the same accuracy with all of the problems. In this next example, you can see that we don't have the radius, but we do have the diameter. The diameter is 6.2. That means the radius is half of that distance, which is 3.1. We can go right to the area formula, and we can do pi times the radius squared. I'll come back over and do the calculations. Pi times 3.1 squared. Hit enter, and I get 30.2. All right, now we will try to find the area of the sector. Now remember, the area of the sector is the section in which it has the central angle. In the problems that you're going to primarily be working out, it'll have kind of a little shaded region for you to see. We need the different formula for that. I'm going to write that down. Remember, it is the angle divided by 360, and then again times pi times the radius squared. So in this scenario, I know they're giving me the angle is 150, and they're also telling me the radius is 19. So I'm going to fill that in, at least for the first few that I'm doing, to make sure that you understand how to write it all out. So I'm plugging in the angle, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the radius in here too. So I know the radius is 19. And then again, the rest from here will just be using a calculator. So I'm going to go back over to my calculator, clear this out, and I'll go 150, and I'm just going to go divided by 360. Then I'm going to do times pi times 19 squared. I'm going to hit enter, and I get 472.5. So the area of that section is 472.5. Now, we didn't talk about this before, but when we find the area, we want to label it if it has a label. And when we are finding the area, it is in a squared format. So it'll be 472.5 feet squared. Let's try that again. So again, we're finding the area of the sector. So that's this little piece of pie here of that circle. So we have the area. Again, the area of that section, which is the angle divided by 360 times pi times the radius squared. The angle is 60. Times pi times 10 squared. We're going to type that right into our calculator. We'll go 60 divided by 360 times pi times 10 squared. 52, rounded to the first decimal place, is 4. And that is inches squared. Okay, this next problem here, when we read it, we want to really make sure that we are paying attention. It says find the area of the sector. So again, that's using that formula that we had from before. Again, that formula is the angle over 360 times pi times the radius squared. Here it gives me the diameter, so I know the radius is 7. And it gives me the angle measure, and the angle measure is 225. If I type that whole thing into my calculator, 225 divided by 360 times pi times 7 squared, you will get 96.2. The label they're using is miles. So just to do a little recap, in this first page, we are finding the area of a circle, and then we are finding the area of a sector, which is the section of the circle, not the circle itself. We're going to do a small extension on that, so we're going to kind of be doing the same thing, just slightly different from what we are doing on that front page. In this section, it says find the area of the sector of the unshaded region. So really what we're wanting in this one is not this shaded region, but we want this region here. So we still use the same formula. Okay, we still need the angle over 360. We still want to multiply it by pi times the radius squared. The thing is, we need the angle of the unshaded region. Remember, a circle has 360 degrees. So if the shaded region is 63, we would need to subtract that in order to get the angle of the unshaded region, which is 297. That means this angle here is 297. We can take 297 and we can plug it into the formula. 297 over 360 times pi times the radius, which is 5 squared. Plug that all into your calculator. Again, I'll show you that again. We had 297 divided by 360 times pi times the radius, which was 5, and we always square it. And that will give us a value of 64.8. The last and final thing we are going to do probably takes the most math work, and that is because we are going to be doing a little bit of working backwards. In this small section, we are finding the radius of the circle. Okay, so that is what we are doing different from before. We can see here we're given the area, and we're also given the central angle of 45 degrees. So we have the area and we have the angle. If we use that formula from before, we know that the area of the sector, we can fill that in. We just don't have the radius because that's what we are looking for. So we're going to write 2245 over 360 times pi times the radius squared. Now this is where your math work will come in. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to calculate this portion together. Now my recommendation is that you round out kind of the same way, at least to where you're working with 1 decimal place. So we'll come back over here and we'll just go 45 divided by 360 times pi. And we're going to get 0.3, I'm going to round out a little farther, so I'm going to say 0.39. Now, pay attention to what I'm doing here. I have to get r by itself. I'm solving for the radius, so now I'm going to divide this over to the other side. And I'm going to keep working on my calculator until I get the final answer. So 22 divided by 0.39, and that's going to give me 56.4. And then to solve this, I'm going to take the square root of that, and that will give me the radius once I take the final square root of that number. And that's going to give me approximately 7.5 or 7.6. I'm going to go ahead and go the square root, so we go second and square. So we go second and square, and then we're going to type in 56.4. And we get 7.5. We'll zoom out, make sure you have that whole thing written down, and we're going to do another one for practice. Again, here the area is 6.4. The central angle is 80. We're going to set it up, so we're going to say 6.4 equals 80 over 360 times pi times the radius, which we don't know, squared. I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to type this portion in first. When I type that in, that is going to give me 6.4 equals 0.22. Well, let me go to my calculator real quick and do that one for you. So 80 divided by 360 times pi, 0.698. So let's just round that to 0.7. So I have 6.4. I'm going to divide that over. And that's going to give me 9.3. And then I can take the square root of 9.3, and that will give me r. And r is going to be approximately 3.04. So really quickly recapping what we did, in this section we're finding the area of a sector, so the area of a little slice of that pizza. In the first examples we found the area of the circle. Here we found the area of a sector. And then on the back, we did slightly different work where we were finding the unshaded region and working backwards to find the radius. If you need to go back and rewatch any of this, pause it or slow it down so that you can make sure that you get it all written down, and then start the homework when you're finished.